Your support keeps these stories alive. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
My name is David. I am 39 years old, and my story begins long before hospitals and doctors ever entered the picture. It begins with a man I was supposed to call my father, a man who shared my blood but not my life. Growing up, I knew what absence felt like more than anything. My father lived only 20 minutes away, but he may as well have been across the country. Birthdays came and went without a card. School plays, baseball games, graduations. Empty seats where he should have been. My mother tried to make up for it, tried to tell me he was busy or not good at showing feelings. But even as a kid, I knew the truth. He simply didn't care. He would breeze in once in a while, like a storm that promised rain but never delivered. A toy on Christmas, maybe a $10 bill on my birthday, if I was lucky, and then months of silence again. He had a new family eventually, a wife, stepchildren, the whole picture-perfect setup. And I was left as a side note, a reminder of a past he didn't want it. I grew up angry. Every father-son event at school was a reminder. Every time a coach asked where my dad was, every time I saw friends running to their fathers after a game, my chest burned with a hollow ache. By the time I hit adulthood, I had stopped expecting anything from him. I built my own life, went to college, worked long hours, made mistakes, fixed them without him. For nearly 4 decades, he never called just to ask how I was. Never showed up to help when I was moving apartments. Never even bothered to learn the names of my closest friends. In my mind, I had no father, just a biological donor who happened to walk this earth. And then one afternoon, everything changed and I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, the voice on the other end made my stomach twist. It was my father, or at least the man who wore that title. His tone was weak, shaky, nothing like the arrogant absence I remembered from childhood. "David," he said, almost like he was tasting the word for the first time. I need to see you. It's important." I almost hung up right there. Years of silence. And now he wanted something? But curiosity, or maybe spite, got the better of me. I agreed to meet him at the hospital the next day. When I walked into that sterile room, the smell of disinfectant sharpened my nose. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked smaller, fragile, his skin pale and thin, his eyes hollow. Tubes and machines surrounded him, beeping steadily like reminders of time slipping away. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Decades of bitterness hung between us like smoke. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sick, David. My kidneys are failing. The doctors say I need a transplant, and you're my only match." The words hit me like a fist. My fist clenched, my chest tight. I could barely process it. Here was the man who ignored me for nearly 40 years, the man who had chosen everyone else over me, and now he wanted me to save his life that I didn't say anything at first. My mind raced with memories. Empty chairs at birthdays, his cold eyes when I tried to hug him, the way he looked right past me at family gatherings. All of it crashing down into that single request. "Why now?" I finally asked, my voice sharp. "Why after all these years do you come to me? You didn't care when I needed you, but suddenly you need me and now I matter?" His eyes welled with tears, but I didn't know if they were real or just desperation. "I made mistakes," he whispered. "I know I wasn't there for you, but I need you now. Please, David, you're my son." Those last words rang in my ears. "You're my son." Words I had wanted to hear my entire life. And yet now, they felt like chains, a plea wrapped in guilt. I left that hospital room without giving him an answer. My head pounded, my stomach churned, and for the first time in years, the ghost of my father was flesh and blood in front of me. But one thought refused to leave me. After a lifetime of being nothing to him, did I owe him everything now? The day after that first meeting, I sat at my kitchen table staring at a cold cup of coffee, trying to untangle the storm in my head. My father's words kept replaying. "You're my son. You're my only match." For almost 40 years, he had ignored those words, and now he was throwing them at me like a lifeline. That'd be why mid-morning my phone began buzzing. First it was the hospital, then his wife, my stepmother, the woman he had chosen instead of raising me. Her voice was syrupy, almost pleading. "David, we're so grateful you came yesterday. Robert, he doesn't have much time. The doctors say the dialysis isn't enough. You could save his life. Please, Think of what this would mean for the family. The family. Those two words struck like a slap. Which family? The one I was never part of? The one that went on vacations without me, celebrated holidays without even sending me an invitation? Now suddenly, I was family because I had something they needed. That evening, I went back to the hospital, not out of compassion, but because I wanted answers. The nephrologist, a kind but blunt man, explained it clearly. Your father's kidney function is below 15%. Dialysis is keeping him alive, but it's not a long-term solution. Without a transplant, he may only have months. You're a direct match. You're his best chance. The words hung in the sterile air like a death sentence. When I entered my father's room, he was propped up in bed, his eyes heavy but lit with desperate hope when he saw me. His wife sat beside him, holding his hand as though she were his guardian angel. David, he rasped, I know I've failed you. I know I don't deserve your kindness. But please, I want a chance to make things right. I want to live. I want to be there. For you, for everyone. I clenched my jaw, memories flooding me again. Be there? You had decades to be there. You weren't. Don't stand here pretending that suddenly you want to play father. His wife jumped in, her voice sharp with impatience. He's dying, David. Do you want his blood on your hands? You can change everything with one decision. The guilt hit me like a wave, but beneath it was anger. For years, I had begged for scraps of his attention. Now I was being painted as the executioner for refusing to hand over a piece of my body. Word spread quickly. Within days, I got calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins, even old neighbors. They all had the same message. He's your father. How can you say no? You'll regret it if you let him die. But no one had been there for me when he didn't show up to my graduations. No one called to check on me when I sat alone at birthday dinners. No one defended me when he built his shiny new life and left me in the shadows. One night, I sat with my best friend, Mark, over beers. He listened quietly as I poured it all out, the guilt, the anger, the crushing weight of being everyone's last hope. Finally, he said, look, man, donating a kidney is a huge deal. It's not like lending someone $100. This is your body, your health, your life. If you don't feel in your heart, don't let anyone guilt you into it. He made his choices. Now you get to make yours. His words stayed with me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the selfish one here. My father had been selfish for decades, choosing convenience over connection, and now he was asking for the ultimate sacrifice as if all that history didn't matter. The pressure only mounted. His wife cornered me again, this time her voice harder, sharper. If you refuse, everyone will know. They'll know you let your father die when you could have saved him. Do you really want to live with that on your conscience? I stared at her, my anger boiling over. Do you know what I've lived with my whole life? Do you know what it's like to have a father who walks right past you as if you don't exist? Don't you dare tell me about conscience. For the first time, she had no words. She just glared at me, lips pressed thin, as if she'd finally realized her guilt tactics weren't working. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I knew this wasn't just about a medical decision. This was about 40 years of abandonment, neglect, and pain. This was about whether I owed a man who had never once acted like a father the chance to use me as his final lifeline. And deep down, though I hated to admit it, I felt the answer forming. The hospital became a place I both dreaded and couldn't stay away from. Every time I stepped inside, the smell of disinfectant mixed with the mechanical beeping of machines made my skin crawl. But part of me needed to look him in the eye again, needed to make him understand what his request really meant. When I walked into his room that evening, the lights were dim. My father was awake, staring out the window, as if searching for something beyond the gray horizon. For a moment, I saw not the absent father of my childhood, but an old man broken down by time and illness. David, he said when he noticed me. His voice was raspier than before, but there was a flicker of hope in it. You came. I pulled up a chair, my heart pounding in my chest. Yeah, I came, but not for the reason you think. We need to talk. He shifted uncomfortably, tugging at the blanket. If this is about the surgery, this isn't about the surgery. I cut him off. This is about the last 39 years of my life. Where were you, Dad? Where were you when I needed you? Do you have any idea what it was like to grow up with a father who pretended I didn't exist? His lips trembled. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then whispered, I wasn't ready. I didn't know how to be a father. Anger flared inside me. You didn't know how? You had decades to learn. Do you think I cared about your excuses when I was sitting alone at birthday parties? Do you think it mattered when I stood on that stage at graduation, scanning the crowd for a face that never showed up? You had time, Dad. You just chose not to use it on me. Tears welled in his eyes. He tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. I made mistakes, he admitted, his voice breaking. I thought, I thought you'd be fine without me. Your mother was strong. You didn't need me the way I thought you did. I leaned forward, my voice sharp as glass. That's where you're wrong. I needed you every single day. I needed you when I fell off my bike and broke my arm. I needed you when bullies cornered me at school. I needed you when I couldn't figure out who I was supposed to be. And you weren't there. You were too busy playing house with your new family. The silence that followed was suffocating. The machines beeped steadily, mocking the space between us. Finally, he whispered, I can't change the past. But I'm begging you, give me a chance to change the future. Let me live. Let me make it right. I shook my head, fighting the lump in my throat. You don't get to suddenly decide to be a father because you're scared of dying. You don't get to ask for my kidney like it's some kind of entry fee into my forgiveness. His eyes widened with desperation. So that's it? You're just going to let me die? The words hit like a blade, but I forced myself to hold steady. I'm not letting you die. I'm just not sacrificing my body for someone who never sacrificed a damn thing for me. He looked at me like he didn't recognize the man sitting across from him. His voice rose, hoarse with anger. You're my son. It's your duty. I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. No, Dove. Being your son was supposed to be your duty, and you abandoned it. Don't stand there demanding loyalty you never gave. For a moment, I thought he might lash out physically, but his frail body betrayed him. He sank back into the bed, shaking with fury and fear. His wife rushed to his side, glaring at me with pure venom. You're selfish, she spat. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. He stared at her coldly. No, I've regretted having a father who treated me like nothing. This is the first time I'm choosing for myself. Then I turned and walked out, my legs trembling, my chest tight, my head spinning with everything I'd finally said out loud. It felt like ripping open an old wound, but also like cleaning it out for the first time. As the automatic door slid shut behind me, the cool night air hit my face. For the first time in years, I felt the weight shift off my shoulders, but the fight wasn't over. Because saying no was one thing. Living with it, that would be the true test. The days after our confrontation blurred together, but the fallout was sharp, loud, and merciless. It felt as if every person connected to my father had been handed a script, and in that script, I was the villain. The phone calls came first. His wife left message after message, each more venomous than the last. You're letting him die, David. Do you even understand what you're doing? He's your father. Then came the text from my half-siblings, kids he had raised while I was left in the shadows. They didn't hold back. You're a coward. You're selfish. You're killing him. One afternoon, I went to pick up groceries, and I ran into an old neighbor who had known our family for years. She looked at me with disgust. I heard what you're doing, David. How could you? He gave you life, and you won't even give him a chance at his. She didn't wait for my answer before turning away, shaking her head like I was beyond redemption. Everywhere I went, whispers followed. People talked about me as though I had already been judged and sentenced. No one wanted to hear my side of the story, the decades of absence, the hollow birthdays, the empty chairs at milestones. To them, all that mattered was the present, a dying man and the son who refused to save him. Inside, I was torn apart. Guilt clawed at me late at night, dragging me awake from restless sleep. I would lie there staring at the ceiling, asking myself, what if I'm wrong? What if this choice defines me forever? But then just as quickly, the anger would return. I would remember the times I needed him and he wasn't there. The way he had chosen another family. The way he had called me now only because I was useful, not because I mattered. And I would remind myself, he made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. A week later, I went back to the hospital, not to visit him, but to drop off some documents the lawyers needed for medical directives. As I walked down the hall, I overheard his wife talking to a nurse. Her voice was sharp, almost panicked. The dialysis isn't holding. They say without a transplant, he might not last another month. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself to keep walking. When I reached his room, he looked even smaller than before. His skin had a grayish tint, his breathing shallow. For a moment, I saw not the man who had abandoned me, but just a man. Weak, broken, afraid, his eyes met mine. They weren't filled with anger this time, but something else, resignation. "So this is it?" he whispered. "This is how it ends?" I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. "I didn't put you here," I said quietly. "Your choices did." He closed his eyes, and a single tear slipped down his cheek. I don't know if it was regret, fear, or something else entirely. When I left, his wife followed me into the hallway. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "When he's gone, you'll remember that you could have saved him, and you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life." I yanked my arm free and stared her down. "I've lived my whole life without him. I'll manage." She gasped, like the words were a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. I walked away, each step heavy, but certain. That night, I sat on my porch, the cool air biting at my face. The house was silent, the kind of silence that makes your thoughts echo louder. I thought of the boy I had been, waiting by the window for a father who never came. I thought of the man I had become, hardened by disappointment, forced to build myself without his guidance. And then I thought of the man lying in that hospital bed, begging me for life. The truth was I wasn't killing him. His neglect, his choices, his indifference, that's what had killed the bond between us long before his kidneys failed. I wasn't his savior, and I wasn't his executioner. I was just the son he had lost years ago, now standing firm in the only decision that felt true to me. The world could call me selfish, heartless, ungrateful. Let them, because in the end, I knew this. I had finally stopped letting his absence define me. But as much as I told myself that, one question still gnawed at me in the dark hours of the night. When the final call came, that he was gone, would I feel peace or a grief too heavy to bear? The phone rang on a gray Tuesday morning. I knew what it was before I even picked up. The tone in my stepmother's voice confirmed it. "He's gone," she said flatly. No tears, no softness, just exhaustion and bitterness. "You should know, since you refused to do anything." Then she hung up. I sat there at my kitchen table, staring at the silent phone, waiting for some wave of emotion to crash over me. Grief, relief, anger, something. Instead, there was only a numbness, a hollow quiet that filled the room. For a long time, I didn't move. My coffee went cold. The sun rose higher. The world carried on as though nothing had happened. And maybe that was the cruelest truth of all. Life doesn't pause for anyone's death, not even your father's. The funeral was a blur. I stood at the back of the small chapel while his new family filled the front pews. My half-siblings glared at me with undisguised hatred. To them, I was the son who had let their father die. To me, I was the son who had already been abandoned long before death ever came. When the pastor spoke of him as a devoted father, a man who lived for his family, bile rose in my throat. I almost walked out, but I stayed, not for him, not for them, but for me. I needed to face the ending, to close the chapter with my own eyes. After the service, no one approached me. People whispered, but no one dared speak. His wife avoided me altogether. And in a strange way, that silence gave me exactly what I needed. For the first time, I realized I owed them nothing. Not explanations, not apologies, not pieces of myself to ease their grief. That evening, I went home and sat on the porch as the sky turned shades of orange and purple. The weight that had pressed on my chest for weeks began to loosen. Not because the decision had been easy, but because it had been mine. For once in my life, I hadn't let him dictate who I was or what I should give. Did I feel sadness? Yes, but not for the man who had died. I felt sadness for the father I never had, for the little boy who had waited by windows for someone who never came. I grieved the relationship that never existed, the bond that was never built. People later asked me if I regretted saying no. The truth? No, I didn't. Because donating a kidney wouldn't have rewritten my childhood. It wouldn't have erased the pain of years of neglect. It wouldn't have made him the father I needed. It would have only taken another part of me for someone who had already taken so much that I chose to live for myself. And maybe that's selfish in some eyes. But in mine, it was survival. As the night grew darker, I raised a glass of whiskey to the sky. "Goodbye, Dad," I whispered. Not bitter, not mocking, just final. "I hope you find the peace you never gave me." The wind was quiet. The world didn't answer. And maybe that was fitting, because the truth I carried with me was simple. Sometimes the most powerful act of forgiveness is refusing to keep bleeding for someone who never bothered to stop your wounds in the first place. That was the legacy he left me. Not love, not guidance, but the strength to finally choose myself. And for the first time in 39 years, I felt free.